Here's part 2 on how I would help a student that's struggling with rounding. In part 1, we made rounding hands-on. Now we're ready to look at a picture. Since we're rounding to the 10, we first want to identify where the tens place is. So in this case, we have a 2 there. So we can think of this like having 42 piles of 10 Oreos. And the number right after the 2, the 8, represents that unfinished pile. And that's the number that's going to help us determine which way to round. So let's make our picture, a number line. Since we're rounding to the nearest 10, we think about getting rid of that last unfinished pile. If I got rid of that unfinished pile, that would take me down to 420 cookies. On the other hand, if I finished that pile, then I would have 430 cookies. Now, what would be the midpoint between 420 and 430? It's 425. Again, this might be a skill that your kid needs some practice with. Next, we think about where does 428 fall on this number line in relationship to the numbers we already have. Since it's bigger than 425, it's going to be to the right. Now, I don't know why I drew the line right there. Probably should have been a little bit closer to the 430, but it doesn't matter. So now we can see, is 428 closer to 420 or closer to 430? Since it's to the right of the middle, it's closer to 430. Now, we can do the same problem, but let's round it to the nearest 100 instead of the nearest 10. First, we identify the number that's in the hundreds place, 4. So I can think of that as having 400 items or 4 complete piles of 100. And I'm working on my next pile to get me up to 500. So what's the midpoint between 400 and 500? It's 450. So where would 428 fall on this number line? We can see that the 8 doesn't really matter. It's more the 20 part of the number that's going to place us. 28 is less than 50, so 428 is less than 450, and I could plot it to the left. And that tells us that 428 will round down to 400. Once your student understands the number lines, taking it to that third level, the abstract method, should be pretty easy. We identify which place we're rounding to, and we look at the next digit to the right to help us to determine if we should round down or up. If that next digit is smaller than 5, we round down, but if the next digit is 5 or higher, we round up. Save this video for a quick refresher if you need help with rounding in the future.